Hey there, welcome back to another installation of Talk Tech with Beck. Apologies for having to take last week off of the vlog, but you can check out my written blog over on my Medium page where I gave a quickie rundown on getting started with Flexbox. Put the link in the description. But now we're back and we're ready to talk about JavaScript, more specifically JavaScript functions, what they are, and a few ways to go about creating and using them. Let's go. In Baker's excellent book, Eloquent JavaScript, 3rd edition, Chapter 3, Functions, begins as follows. Functions are the bread and butter of JavaScript programming. The concept of wrapping a piece of program in a value has many uses. It gives us a way to structure larger programs, to reduce repetition, to associate names with subprograms, and to isolate these subprograms from each other. The most obvious application of functions is defining new vocabulary. Creating new words in prose is usually bad style, but in programming, it is indispensable. Typical adult English speakers have some 20,000 words in their vocabulary. Few programming languages come with 20,000 commands built in, and the vocabulary that is available tends to be more precisely defined and thus less flexible than in human language. Therefore, we usually have to introduce new concepts to avoid repeating ourselves too much. So, functions are pieces of code that are typically written to perform a task. They are used prolifically while writing a program and are often made with a mind towards reusability. Okay, fine, I get it. Functions are important, but now, how do I make it? So there are a few ways to define a function, and taking out a page out of Eloquent JavaScript, they say a function definition is a regular binding where the value of the binding is a function. He goes on to give an example of a function that produces the square of a number. So we have const square equals function x, where we will return x times x, and there we go. We can go ahead and call this function. So if we were to console log square of 12, where 12 is entered as a parameter or argument, we would see in our console log boop, 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 that the answer we receive is in fact and correctly 144. If you're not sure what was meant before in regards to a regular binding, just as a quick aside, the syntax of writing const square equals is a binding, also known as a variable. Using bindings allows JavaScript to catch and hold on to values or data. When we use the keyword const before a word, we are setting that word as a reusable variable with a value, and in this case, that value is a function that will perform our desired task. So, now that the concept of binding is out of the way, how do we let the computer know that this recently declared variable is to be a function to be called on later so it can perform a job that we need it to? There are a few ways to do this, but we'll start by simply assigning our variable to equal a function. Literally, we will write the word function on the right side of the equal sign. Immediately after the word function, no spaces here, we will throw in some parentheses. And those parentheses are there to hold parameters. A function can have no parameters, one parameter, even multiple parameters. It all depends on what you need. But even if you need no parameters, you do still need parentheses. They'll just stay empty. The example function that we just did only has one parameter, and that's our x, which, if we remember our math class days, it's just filling in for an unknown value at the moment. Here's a quick example, still from Eloquent JavaScript, of a function that needs no parameters passed into it to perform its intended task. So we will go ahead and get rid of our square function. We're going to write a make noise function. I'm going to say const make some noise. It equals a function with some empty parentheses, and all we're going to do here is return the console log of pling. Done. So when we come down here and we invoke make noise, oops, you know why that didn't work? We didn't call it. We wrote it. We didn't Boke it. There we go. So now, when we come down here, give that a little function video, pling, get console log of pling. All right, so we've created a variable. It is now bound to a function. Next up, we'll want to write statements that we want our function to execute when it's called later on. And we want to write these statements inside a set of curly braces, or curly boys as I like to call them, and many others. Now, maybe you're saying to yourself, I've definitely written single line functions without using curly boys. Don't tell me what to do. You are not my mom. That is true. Totally not your mom. But in this case, when you write a function in this manner, the curly boys are required, even if you only have one thing to say. So now that we understand what makes up a function, what does it do? Well, some functions produce a value, like that square function before, and some don't, like make noise. Make noise just results in a side effect. To determine the value that a function will produce, we will use a return statement. So, as is said again, once more in eloquent JavaScript, when control comes across such a statement, a return statement, we're talking about return statements, it immediately jumps out of the current function and gives the return value to the code that called that function. A return keyword without an expression after it will cause the function to return undefined. Functions that don't have a return statement at all, such as make noise, simply return undefined. So basically, a function can do practically anything as long as you know how to tell them what to do and how to do it. And that you also remember to tell them to do it by including the return statement. So now that I've shown two pretty simple functions, here's one more that is still pretty simple, but it's also longer and just kind of shows you some more ways of how functions might be useful to you in the future. So we will go with, we're going to go with const power equals a function, and this one we're going to have two arguments. We're going to have a base and an exponent, and then from there we are going to move into our function. So first we're going to declare a new variable, let result equal 1, and we're going to go into a for loop. In our for loop, we're going to declare another variable, which is count. We're going to set that to equal 0, and then while count is less than our exponent, every time we move into our action in our loop, as long as count is less than exponent, we're going to increase count by 1. So we start at 0, and then we'll go up to the number below our exponent. So from there, as you can see, we're going to go into some other curly boys because we need to tell, oops, no, not yet, hold on. Boop. First, we're going to get out of those parentheses. Then we're going to go into our curly boys, and we're going to tell what we want our for loop to do. So we're going to take our result, which equals 1, and then we're going to multiply it and then equal it. This multiply equals is really nice because it's the same. So basically, result times equals base is basically the same as if we said result equals result times base. But it's just doing it easier. It's saying, hey, take what's on the left, multiply it by what's on the right, and then that's your new result that equals that. It's great. Easy peasy. Lemon squeezy. So we have this new one, and then that's great. This is a function, but right now it doesn't do anything because while we do some math, we get our result. We haven't done anything with it yet. So we will exit our loop, and then we will tell it to return our result. And then let's see what we get. So we can console log power, and we're gonna need two arguments. So we'll say 2 and 10. Get out of our parentheses, and then we can come down here again, do a little command K out of there. We will once more call our thing, and we correctly get 1024. So that's our final result. So there you have it, an introduction to functions and one way to declare them. You're practically a professional now. Next time we're going to talk about some of the other ways to declare a function in JavaScript and when or why you might choose to use it. There's 3 more. So I'll see you then. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with all your friends. Coding is really hard, and if I can be the littlest bit helpful to anyone, then I'm happy to be here. Good night.